Hey guys, it's Cathy Heller. Welcome back to the Cathy Heller podcast. I hope you had a beautiful weekend. And today I wanted to share a clip that I think will really land for you. It feels very timely. We're diving into the energy of this moment, this full-blown Leo season of August. And what does it mean to step into this energetic? What is here for us? And it really has to do with standing in sovereignty. I'm going to talk about how you can tune into what is a full body yes for you and lead from the place of your truth and uncover what really is the desire that your soul is truly seeking, and let yourself shine in a way that magnetizes opportunities and abundance. I'm also going to share a few prompts that you might want to write down to journal around that might be helpful. I think that this will awaken something in you. So let's get into it. I'm so happy to be here because I want to dive into the month of August. We just actually crossed over the crunchiest time, and we're actually now at the better time in Leo, where we actually can move into the lightest, brightest part of Leo. Leo has in it sort of really dense energy and also the capacity for really bright energy. In fact, August 15th on the lunar Hebrew calendar, which follows the zodiac, is a holiday called Tu B'Av, which is actually the Kabbalistic Valentine's Day. It's like a love day. August 15th it is when it shows up this year. And so that's just interesting and fun to know. You might feel a little bit of your Kundalini chakra activated. You might feel a little sun on your shoulders vibe. But we have moved out of the first part of Leo, which is a little bit intense. And we actually just literally Monday night opened up into what Leo is actually about. So every sign has its yin and yang, right? So let's talk about Leo, because even if this isn't your sign, you weren't born here in this month, you're accessing the energy of this month. We're all here. Time is cyclical. And so there is an energy to time. And so I'm excited to sort of talk a little bit about this portal, because it's something that we can all dive into. So the energy of this part of August is really about you embodying your sovereignty, right? Everyone has a lion in them. And I love this. This is why we chose to make this month called your full body yes, because this class today is about you coming back into the sovereignty of what is your hell yes? How do you locate it? How do you have the courage to choose it? But let's go. It is amazing how we outsource our yes. It is amazing how we dull our capacity to hear it, because we've given our power away in so many ways. And that's actually not even good for the world. No one wants your power. They want you to have it, right? You're meant to have your own authority. There's a reason why you should be the person who's deciding what's best for you, okay? Because you have a divine assignment that no one else can tell you what that is. So it's really important that we come into this. So the vibration of Leo is fire, right? It's this lion. It's the month that's going to call you up, okay? This is the month that's hoping that it gives you the push to step into your most radiant self. You're not dimming. If you're actually available for it, this is the month where you have the most amount of spiritual help to step fully into you. You fully alive, fully expressed, in charge, okay? And so Kabbalah says this lion, okay, the word in Hebrew is REA, it lives inside every soul. Every soul can roar. Every soul has that potential to be fully in its sovereignty, okay? So this, though, what's important, and this is where Leos can sometimes get sticky, it's not about ego. That's not the point, right? It's about you and purpose. There's a difference of intention. It's not look at me, hi, because some Leos are really charismatic and they do get a lot of attention, and then they get a little confused about how to use that Leo energy. It's not ego energy. It's the energy of presence and walking in the world as the vessel that you were born to be, right? You're a vehicle for a big, tremendous light. That doesn't mean that it's like, look at me. It's about, what does this vessel bring out in everyone? How do you become an expander when you are in truth of your purpose? That's really not about you. It's actually about all of us, because that's the intention of being fully in that lion energy, right? So, this is the month where you're being invited to recalibrate to that. So, you're going to stop outsourcing clarity. You're going to stop outsourcing whatever for you is second guessing or over explaining. That's not happening this month. This month, it's about really tuning into, like, there's a reason, even if it seems weird or it's different than what everyone else is doing, like, you've got to figure out how to hear that voice. That's the voice that needs to come online this month. Okay. So I'm just going to read you what I just posted today on social media, just because I think it also reflects that. I think it'll help us continue to move forward by just naming it. So I wrote the following. I said, if you've been scrolling and your chest feels tight and your mind feels foggy, it means your soul is being summoned to rise, to higher frequencies, to truth, to clarity, to light. The algorithm will always amplify darkness because fear gets clicks. Kabbalah teaches that for every single shadow, there is an equal amount of light. It is always available, always, always, always. So don't get sucked into an illusion. Don't confuse volume with truth. You're not sent here to carry negativity. Let's all be clear. That's not our job, right? We were actually sent to bring the light. Our assignment is to embody the frequency of wholeness so fully that any distortion dissolves in your presence, expanding your vessel so that light is all that pours through you and the world around you recalibrates to that. There is a part of you that fully knows that you have come to the world to lead, to share, to ignite, all of that. And so really and truly, we live in an interesting time because we used to not have social media. And so we weren't necessarily as much pulled into whatever gets the most like attention, right? We kind of had our own human issues with what we focused on in our attention. But now it's very fascinating that we're like spending way too many hours a day focusing on an algorithm that like is not your friend. Like, it's just not your friend, and it's not actually showing you a really good depiction of the world. It's showing you what's going to get the most for the algorithm to do what it does to make money on your fear, right? That's not serving you or the world, because your job is to do your job as a soul, which is to elevate. So if anything feels heavy, judgmental, hate-filled, it's like, that can't be true, right? Because what's true is unified consciousness. What's true is love that creates something that elevates everyone, right? And doesn't pull us into polarities and division, because every branch is part of the same tree. So it makes no sense to go into that little lane, and you would never see the Dalai Lama or Sadhguru or Deepak Chopra involved in any of that. And that's the point. So we have to just keep bringing ourselves back to like, you are here in this room because you know on some level you've been assigned to be in this path of leadership. And so this is what it looks like. And by the way, people are so available for it that as soon as you're like, I'm coming up from the fog, everyone's like, thank God, I'm going to be on it with you. I'm going to start following you. I'm going to start turning down all this other stuff and tuning into what's real and what's true so I can keep adding to the light, adding to the light, adding to the light. Okay, so let's talk about what it means to be in sovereignty. Okay. So Kabbalah teaches that all of abundance begins in the world of potential, right? So in the world of light, which is always, okay. One of the names for God in the Torah is the Ein Sof, which is the endless light. Okay. So that is endless. It means it was, is, will be, always. It's always on, just like the sun is always shining, right? You don't perceive that sometimes, but it never stops shining. It's always shining, right? Depending on the rotation of the planets, you might not see it, but it is always there at full blast all the time. So too is the light of the creator, nonstop, right? It is available for you to tap into the energy of the solution, to tap into your quantum leap, to tap into what's next for you. Always there. Always, 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 always. Okay. So now you have come to the world to be a vessel for that light, period. Every single one of us. Every single one of us has come to the world to be a vehicle for that. But light can only flow through us when we are that vessel. And there are many times when we are actually resistant to being it. Okay. So we didn't come here to outsource our power. And that's part of how we stop ourselves from being a vessel, when we're second guessing what's just totally true for us. And we're asking other people to validate us. We're coming from this sticky place of not being in a state of wholeness. Of wholeness is authenticity. Wholeness is, this is who I am. This is what I mean. This is what's coming through for me, right? And I'm not trying to control how people perceive me, right? That's outsourcing your power. So we want to tap into what is the actual desire of your heart. Okay, because that, the word for that in Hebrew is Raton. That desire, we talked a little about that last month, that is coming from your soul when you actually tune in. And we're going to talk about how do you tune into it. We're going to actually do an exercise today that helps you know what desire is yours versus somebody else's desire that they've put on you. Because that desire is direction. It is a GPS to divine fulfillment. And you have to listen to it. And it's irrelevant if it makes sense to anybody else. Okay. So the question is not asking anyone, what's my smartest, best move? The question is, what do I desire so deeply that it actually scares me to say it out loud? And I swear to you, every one of you just had an awareness as I said that. And some of these things feel like they're off limits. Some of these things feel like there's no way I could actually say that out loud. And that's actually why I asked it like that. Because you have to try to get to the part of you that has the truth, not the part of you that is so indoctrinated and not trying to hear its truth that, like, when you ask something a certain way, sometimes. So that, what do I desire so deeply that it scares me to say out loud? That's your portal. That is your divine path. Okay, so what does a full body yes feel like? Okay, because honestly, we have cut ourselves off from our truth for so long, we don't even know anymore. And actually, that's the part that makes me want to cry. Like, that is a broken spirit, but it's there, right? It's there. And I feel like you guys are so far ahead of so many of the humans that are walking the earth. And that's why you're here, because you let yourself hear that voice like probably 40% of the time. But I want you to hear it all day. I want you to hear it all the time, because it's such a blessing to the world when you hear it, when you follow it. Okay. So I want to remind you that you were never confused. You were just conditioned to ignore clarity that was already present. But you've actually never been confused. A full body yes, by the way, is not loud. It doesn't scream. It just actually lands like peace in your chest. It's just this feeling of peace. And it feels like calm. It feels like this soft excitement. It feels like energy that returns to your body with one thought. You're like, oh my God, it just felt like revitalized. It feels like a little like click in your spirit where it's like you're turning up the thermometer a little bit, like your spirit gets a little activated. And there is a little silent whisper. It's so quiet that it's like so powerful, but it just says to you, like, this is it. So if you contrast that with all of the fake yeses, the ones that are not full body yeses, are rooted in fear, people pleasing, and scarcity. What will people say? Who will I hurt? Who else is more important in terms of my decisions? What guilt is coming up? And how can I make this choice if I believe in the scarcity of, like, I don't know how this will happen, as if that's your business. But like, we get into the scarcity of like, that's not possible for me. I don't see the how, so I can't make that decision to choose the yes because I have scarcity. So that fake yes, it doesn't feel like a buzz, it feels like contraction. And you can tell the difference because the body is never confused. So you'll hear, if you slow down long enough to listen, your body is going to tell you that it kind of just lost that little spark of energy because you went into the direction of fear, guilt, or people pleasing, scarcity. It's just that that's what's familiar. So you kind of just keep choosing it because it's familiar. And what's familiar actually feels safe. So now let's talk about trusting that. Okay. So when you're trusting what is the full body, yes, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you won't be afraid of trusting it, because courage doesn't happen in the absence of fear. You're courageous because you're scared, but also doing it anyway. There's a little part of you that knows this is unfamiliar. So therefore, my body says this is scary, but I'm choosing it. And there's actually so much electricity in that, because you're no longer negotiating with your soul. You're no longer negotiating with your soul. And this is a level of trust. In Hebrew, the word is emunah, because it's not faith. Faith can be translated in lots of different ways and meanings. It's like an energetic certainty. An energetic certainty is when you are allergic to, even if something is scary, you are now allergic to any energy that you know doesn't feel like the truth. So you're just choosing energetic certainty. You're like, I'm choosing based on the energy alone. The energy of this, for whatever the reason, I know that this is me being alive. I know that this is me when I feel right with myself. I'm choosing that. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You know that feeling. So that alignment is more powerful than effort, by the way, every time, right? And then what happens is, after you move, this infinite, amazing light that's always there and shining, it just meets you there. And sometimes you will get some kind of a sign and a synchronicity as you're choosing it. Sometimes you'll get it right after. But I want to remind you, you are that synchronicity. You are that sign. It's actually you. You just become the mystic when you choose that. Like you're a walking portal, and you become evidence that the universe is now waiting to broadcast through that, right? So trust is when you choose that, because your peace is what's more important than doubt. Doubt is way too expensive, and waiting actually costs you more than you realize. So I want to do a little exercise with you guys to kind of plug into that. So I'll just say, because it feels connected, this week, of course, everything is always like, divinely orchestrated. My friend Amber's book came out this week, and I had her on the podcast, and just, we've done 1,000 episodes. This is a really good episode. You might want to listen to it. It's really, really powerful. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because Amber talks about, she wrote this book called Lovable, which is a memoir. And the first part of the book is this like incredible story. But the book is really actually about the journey back to herself. And it's just powerful, her story, because she was married to her best friend, and they got along, and he was nice and she was nice, and they were together for 9 years, and they were in business together. They had a lot of friends together, but they had a sexless marriage. She always felt like something's wrong with her, because everything was fine. He was like her brother. What's wrong? Anyway, long story short, she tells the story on the podcast, but she knew that the thing she wasn't admitting to herself was that this wasn't meant to be. But the part of her that was trained to be a good girl felt really bad to even know that. And who would she hurt? And what would she do? And how could she live with herself? And it's truly an amazing journey of self-honoring is what she went through to get to where she is. And now she's married to her soulmate. She has a baby, and her ex is married and happier than ever. And she's like, I look at my son and think, imagine if I hadn't had the courage, but I thought I was bad for knowing this truth, right? And it's just one example, but she's such a poetic person. And she used to host journaling workshops anyway. She still does for years. That her telling her own version of the story and the way she unpacks how she came home to her truth is so liberating. And the conversation we had it really relates to you, whether you're, struggling with this in a relationship or with your career or just in your family or setting boundaries. Like it's all really under the umbrella of we grow up, and while we're growing up, there is a way in which it doesn't feel safe to be powerful. It just doesn't feel safe to fully just be in our power and trust ourselves. And it's like generational, so many people before us, kind of well-meaning people, tell us not to trust ourselves, and really self-abandonment it costs everybody, right? So it was just a really powerful conversation. I highly recommend listening to it. And I wrote some journal prompts that are not so dissimilar, probably, from the things that Amber talks about. And Amber, by the way, talks about on the podcast how sometimes it's hard to be honest with yourself or with someone else, but if you could be honest on the page when you're journaling, that's a really powerful practice. It's like, let yourself be honest on the page and see what starts to happen. So I have a few questions and we'll go through maybe a few of them. So the first one is, where am I pretending I don't know what I want? Like, where in your life is there something you want that you pretend you don't know? Okay, the next question is, what is no longer a match for who I've become? The third question is, what am I afraid will happen if I fully trust my yes? The next question is, what does walking like the vessel look like in my daily life? The last question is, if I trusted the universe to meet me, what would I do today? Okay, so I just want you to close your eyes for a second as I share this kind of final thought to close out today. When you're aligned with the light that made you, you become the vessel that reality rearranges itself to serve. You're not confused. You are sovereign to your soul. And when your yes becomes non negotiable, the gates open every time. So you can open your eyes, and I hope that this served you. And let's just literally hold for everyone here the strength to be in alignment, the courage to choose, the remembering to remember your own voice. And this month, what's so fun about it is there's like extra spiritual energy encouraging and supporting you in that. So as you're choosing it, it's like you take one step, the universe will move you 10 steps because it's active right now. It's in the field. So the more that you can claim to move into this wholeness, this sovereignty, this vessel, this power, it's going to only, it's like when charities are doing something and they have a match, a donor that's matching on a certain day. It's like, this is the time where whatever you do, the energy gets met and matched times like an infinite. So the more that you can do that now, it sets you in motion for the next many, many months. So it's a good time to remember. Okay, now I want to share something on a totally different topic, which is podcasting. We talk about the new paradigm around visibility and how you can actually call in the right audience. And we're going to talk about how you can get the clarity on what is your message and what is it that you really need to say to the world. And by the way, if you want to dive into this fully, I'm doing a free 3-day boot camp that starts August 18th. You can sign up for that at cathyheller.com/bootcamp. Okay, take a listen. We're going to talk about what I think will help you grow your visibility, grow your platform. And then we're also going to talk about what are maybe the things to overcome. What's the real resistance behind growing your platform, perhaps? So typically, the old paradigm is the more I chase, the more effort I put in, the more I feel that I'm trying to work with the algorithms as they are, the more I will be seen. So that's the old paradigm. That's like the kind of illusion. And the real paradigm and the new one to import into your consciousness is the more resonant I am, the greater the frequency I cast, the clarity of the signal I send out, the more visible I am. I want you to think about Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie and Abraham Hicks. These are people obviously in the spiritual space, Wayne Dyer, right? I think those are good examples of the deeper the resonance, the more visible they are. Okay. The new paradigm is visibility is not about pushing harder or raising your voice and getting louder and shouting. It's really about being more resonant and just choosing the clarity of the signal that you send out, right? Really getting that. And then the soul, here's the cool news. The soul is what transmits, right? People find you through energetic alignment every time. How do you think you're friends with the people you're friends with? You think it's because of the zip code they live in? It's their energy. It's a soul connection. You find each other over and over again, right? You're like, oh my God, you're so my first. God, we talk the same, right? Okay, so the new mantra is, I don't chase listeners. I need to become findable. And how do you become findable? It's the conversation we're having right now. Okay, so the energetic alignment has to come first. And so here are a couple questions to ask yourself. Am I speaking from my true self, or am I performing a version of me that I think will be liked? No one wants that version of you. I'm telling you, you don't want it, but they don't want it either. So am I speaking from my true self, or am I performing a version of me that needs to be liked? And then the second question is, do I actually enjoy this content, or is this an obligation? I spoke to a friend a couple of days ago and she's like, my podcast is boring me. And her podcast is very like research based. It's interesting, but it's like information, And meanwhile, this person is very funny. And so I said to her, well, yeah, I mean, it's like going to school and like, you're just like a blast. I said, you would probably be better off, picking like, cause she's obsessed with the Real Housewives. I'm like, you should just do a podcast where you just comment on the Real Housewives. Like you would just laugh and people would laugh. And she's like, I can do that. I'm like, yeah, you could do that. We don't have to be, I mean, isn't it interesting that like, speaking of the Real Housewives, like Bethany Frankel, like for some people, like she empowers them. Isn't that funny? Like she's not trying to be serious. And for some people, they're like, she like makes me grow my standards. It's like, okay, like my point is like you could be a blessing to someone and you don't necessarily have to do what you think people want from you. You could just be yourself. Can you imagine that you just being yourself might actually help other people, right? Just because you're yourself. Okay. So I want you to also really get that there is always, 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 always divine timing, right? There is always a reason why the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. I mean, I remember when I got married and I wanted to have a baby right away. I got married at 30 and I was like, all right, cool. And I went through a little bit of a fertility journey. And then when I finally had my daughter, I was like, oh, this is the right time. I needed the time. Like I needed to have that time. Not only did I need the time for other reasons, but the longing that it actually carved out in me that once I then had her, I was really there for it. Like I really, really, it like really created in me like the desire to do it. So the audience is there and the audience is on the way. And also there is a way in which you might still be sorting through what is the message. And you might say, oh, I'm so glad they showed up now, because who I showed up as in my first 20 episodes was an adaptation of myself. It's not really me. And so once I really drop in, now it's the right timing, right? And so there's always that divine timing. But here's a couple of things that I want you to think about. Your message. Like really, what is the thing that you're transmitting? I remember Carole King said that what makes a good song is a songwriter should have something to say. And sometimes I'd be in a studio with someone and they'd be writing a song and I'm like, what do you have to say today? And they're like, oh, I'm just trying to write a hook. It's like, don't just try to write a hook.
figure out what you want to say first, and then the hook will come, right? What do you want to say? What's the message? What is the thing that you want to say? And you don't have to say something new on every episode. You can say the same thing on every episode. You can say the same thing in a different way on every episode. That one pain point that you solve, Marie Kondo is only going to talk about that same thing. We can hear that all day long. That's enough of a message, right? What brings you joy? Does it bring you joy? She could say that every time until she's blue in the face. It would still not be enough. So, but what is the message? Do you have it? Do you know what it is? Are you afraid of owning what your message is? That's what's going to bring your audience, is the specificity of that message. Really, really, what is it at its essence? And it doesn't have to be something no one's ever heard before either. It just got to be true to you, right? And as far as this is concerned, also your voice. Are you letting your full self speak? What are you actually doing on the mic? Are you filtering yourself? Are you fully there, warts and all? Because that's what's going to bring an audience, is when you're not holding back. You're fully unleashed. That's what makes it way more interesting, is just like, the unedited version of you. That's what people want. People don't want the edited version, right? And why? Because we don't see anyone. We see a reflection of ourselves. So they want to be the unedited version of themselves. So they want you to give yourself that permission so they can do that too. And then the rhythm of it, right? Are you creating from overflow, or are you creating from a place of depletion, right? Like, remember that there's no right or wrong way to do anything. You know how people put out a book and they talk about the book for 6 months before it comes out, and they talk about the book for 6 months after it comes out, or longer, sometimes years? You could create 12 episodes of a podcast as a series and promote it, and then keep talking about it and put out the next 12 episodes of a new level of the series 6 months later. There is no right or wrong way. That's, by the way, how Malcolm Gladwell does his podcast. And I would say that he has a pretty good sense of having an audience. He does like a series, then he stops and does another series, right? There's no specific way it has to go. It's just, what has to happen is it's always coming from overflow. Like, for whatever the reason, as it is for me, I always have energy to do a podcast. It's just something that's easy. I like interviewing people. I just like it. And we just always have more of them. So we've been able to do one a week or more than one a week for 8 years. But there are plenty of other things in my life that I would be depleted if I did them all the time. Plenty of other things. So I don't do those things because I would be doing that from a place of total, there's nothing left to give. And then it's not good. So what's your rhythm? And how can you create from a place of overflow rather than pushing something just because you feel like you have to push it? You don't need to push it. In fact, let's say there's a period of time where you've done 10 episodes and now you're feeling a little depleted. Do an episode now that's a roundup episode of elements of 5 episodes you've already done. Why would you be so sure that everyone's heard everything you've already put out? So if you're getting depleted, maybe you make a theme and you say, every 12 episodes, I'm going to do an episode that has a theme, meaning it's like, clips of 5 women entrepreneurs who've been on, or clips of people who've been dealing with grief, or clips of people who talk about whatever it is. It's like, people like hearing repackaged things. They don't even probably remember the first time they heard it. So you can do that as well. But I would like you to take out a pen and paper, because I want to ask you a question. And I want the question to help evoke for you what the message really is. And so my question to you is, what am I here to say that no one else says the way I do? I want you to just write that down. And I don't care if your answer is perfect or if it's stream of consciousness, but I want you to answer the question, what am I here to say that no one else says the way that I do? How do you say it? So write that down. And even if you think people say it similarly, there's an emphasis on a certain aspect of it that's yours. You can be yourself. You can move and pivot however you want. So, my podcast started out helping people to do their life assignment as their job. So they wouldn't have a job. They would be doing their life's work. And it was a combination of listening to your gut and your soul, and then how to get paid to be you. But eventually I was like, I don't really know that I care about the getting paid part. I just care about the spiritual piece so much that I'm going to like fully own that and let people's abundance come from the depth of the significance. Like the more significant they are, the more they'll find real abundance. And that worked for me. After 5 years, we moved over here. Now it's been 8 years. And the last 3 years, I thought I was going to lose my whole audience. I had this like weird thought, like, what are you doing? It's never going to work. It actually was fine. People are willing to go with you on the journey. So keep excavating and mining for the gold within you. Okay, let's now talk about a little bit of the strategy piece. So you can't do it all because it will be worn so thin if you try to do everything at once. I don't think that that's fun. And so I wouldn't be trying to master YouTube while I'm trying to master, even now, it's been 8 years. People are like, are you going to get a studio and start shooting your podcast? And I'm like, no, because for me to take on shooting it with lighting and going to a studio and then trying to get the YouTube thing going and caring about it, it's just bandwidth that I don't have to give. I want to just keep making a great show that's sustainable and easy for me to do. So I kind of choose to make an audio episode. And of course, we put it up on YouTube, but we don't really spend much energy on that. And that works for me. Okay. But I would say choose 1 or 2 platforms that you like, that feel good. Choose 1 or 2. Don't try to do everything at once. So I post every day on Instagram something that I write in the morning, and then I create an audio podcast. That's kind of what I do. And one of the things that helps you more than you realize, like when you're selling a book, one of the best ways to sell a book is to talk about your process of writing a book. It actually helps you sell the book. And so during the pre-sell, I'm like, oh my God, this is what my book's about. Oh my God, here's my journey to even being able to give myself permission to write this book. Here's what one of the chapters is like. Here's how I came up with this chapter. Like it gets people excited about it versus go buy the book, go buy the book. So as you talk about what you're loving about the podcast, what you're learning and doing the podcast, who you're becoming by having this podcast, you're making it personal. And then people want to go listen to the podcast. And so share it. You can share it on the show, and you can also share it maybe one other place. Like, oh my God, I just did this episode. I can't believe I got to do this. I learned so much. I'm growing so much. Here's why it was hard. Here's why it was exciting. That is helpful, because what you're really remembering to do is you're not trying to get the reach to be as big as possible. You're trying to get it to be as deep as possible. You want the reach to be as deep as possible. You want people to feel like they're rooting for you. They know you. They know that you're quirky and flawed, and they know that you're having your own human experience. And then they're rooting for you. And the depth becomes a real connection rather than a wider connection that's like empty likes. You don't really want them to be empty. You want people to really be in it. And then also, we've talked about going on other people's podcasts where the audience is aligned. The topic is aligned. I don't care how big the audience is. I care that there's an alignment, there's a crossover in the topic or the audience. And your podcast becomes like that core content engine. And then you're repurposing that. One thing that you could do is create today, even right now, you could scratch it down on paper. What is like a 30-day little lighthouse plan? And what that means is like, where can you show up 3 times a week with content that, here's the important part, radiates your essence? Where could you just put a little bit of intention around, this is where I'm going to share, like what we talked about when we first got on today, me being myself. I'm just going to do that for its own sake, right? For its own sake. I'm just going to show up here. So maybe that just is your podcast feed. Maybe it's in a private Facebook group created just for your listeners, or maybe it is on Instagram, or maybe it's in an email, but it's done intentionally where it's radiating what is your essence: short, sweet, personal, intimate, interesting. That's what's going to start to be the glue. We've tried a million different emails and they hardly get open, and that's across the board for everyone. And then last week I posted a picture of a house that we were redesigning and my favorite lunch that I ate that week. And then people responded, because it has nothing to do with how I can inform people or how I can impress people. It's just me being myself every time. And you're like, oh, right, better than like trying to stand on my head. And juggle all the balls, just be yourself. People are so much more interested in that because why? Because we came to the world to connect. We're lonely. We want to make connections. We want to feel seen. We want to make other people feel seen. It's what is at the root of it. Isn't it amazing? We're not all wired into achievement. We're actually wired into connection. Connection is the name of the game. So maybe you create your 3 times a week in one place content. And at the end, you say something like call to action. If this moved you, I'll see you at the podcast, and remember that your being is the magnet. So I want you to show up from inspiration, not from pressure. Nobody's interested in you feeling pressured. And I want you to close your eyes again. And I want to say this to you, and I want you to hear it inside of yourself, from yourself, which is, my visibility is inevitable when I show up in my truth. Just feel how that reverberates in your system. My visibility is inevitable when I show up in my truth. And how does that feel? And when you hear yourself saying that to yourself, it becomes so obvious, right? Because how could you be visible when you're not in your truth? It actually means you're not visible even to yourself. So how can you be visible to anybody else? So it literally is self-fulfilling. Until you are willing to be in your truth, you're telling the world, I'm not visible. So they won't find you visible because you're not even visible to yourself. So what does it mean to just go and be visible? Right? I can tell you that before I started my podcast, I thought to myself, because I have a human experience, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about things on the podcast and people are going to be repelled. I was like, I'm going to say things on this podcast and people are going to be like, first of all, who is she to say anything about this topic? She's not a therapist. She's just a person. That's weird. And I just knew that there were things that I would say that I could hear the call and response of people's cynicism or what would be triggering. And then there was a decision to be made, which is, okay, well, I'm not responsible for that part. I'm only responsible for my part. And this is my truth. So I won't own it, whatever their response is. I'll just do me. And I'll try to be, constantly aware of keeping my side of the road clean and coming from the intention of love and honesty and kindness. And so it is. And I'm sure there are plenty of people, for every person who's like obsessed with, my show or loves it, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are like, oh, can't stand her. And it's none of my business. It doesn't matter. The truth is that even the people who are like, oh, I listen to your show every day, that's also none of my business, because that says more about them than me. Okay, I'm aligning with them. Great. It's not really my business anyway. My business is, this feels like the project I'm supposed to do right now. And I have to answer that call. If that makes sense.
So I hope that you got some insight from both of those different pieces. And I am just here for you. So if you want to follow up, you can always DM me on Instagram at Cathy.Heller. I'm always curious how you're feeling, if something I said sort of felt like an aha, but I'm rooting for you and I'm here. All right, here are the takeaways. Number 1, the lion lives inside every soul. Every soul can roar. Every soul has that potential to be fully in its sovereignty. Number 2, for every shadow, there is an equal amount of light that is always available, and we're sent to bring the light. Number 3, ask yourself, what do I desire so deeply that it scares me to say it out loud? Your desire is direction. It is a GPS to divine fulfillment. Number 4, a full body yes is so quiet, but it's so powerful. It actually lands like peace in your chest, and it says to you in a whisper, this is it. Number 5, you're no longer negotiating with your soul. You're choosing energetic certainty. You are sovereign to your soul. And when your yes becomes non-negotiable, the gates open every time. Number 6, visibility is not about pushing harder or raising your voice and getting louder. It's really about being more resonant and choosing the clarity of the signal that you send out. The energetic alignment has to come first. Number 7, you're not trying to get the reach to be as big as possible. You're trying to be as deep as possible. Connection is the name of the game. And number 8, your being is the magnet. Show up from inspiration, not from pressure. Your visibility is inevitable when you show up in your truth. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I so appreciate that you spend time out of your busy life to be here. And we have so many good episodes coming up. So please make sure that you follow along on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening. And if you want to support the show, leave us a review and a rating and tell someone about the podcast. Here's a sweet review that we just got. Every episode gets better and better. I have loved Cathy's podcast for over a year. Her episodes expand my knowledge and teach me so much. I often listen to them multiple times while waiting for the next one to drop. A must listen. That is just so nice. Thank you. I love that so much. If you haven't already left a review, we might just read it on a future episode. Last thing, quick reminder, I'm doing a free podcast bootcamp that starts August 18th. If you want to dive in and learn all things about creating a podcast or growing and monetizing a podcast that can transform your business and your life, you can sign up for free at cathyheller.com/bootcamp. I love you so much. I'll talk to you next week.